Hello and welcome to this beanie tutorial. Beanies are a super great first project. They are really adaptable. You can't really mess up too much with it, and everything's really easily customizable to fit your head. If you're with me in one of my classes, you will have gotten all the materials you need, but in order to make this beanie, I recommend a size 6 hook and a thicker yarn. The thicker the yarn is, the less stitches you're going to need, which means that you're able to finish that project faster. And for me, making sure that you're able to complete the project in a timely manner is really important. Like if a project takes me 80 hours and it's my first project, then you're not going to get that sense of like validation and I can do this. Maybe you will and you're one of those people, but we like to set ourselves up for success here. So I'm going to be making a purple beanie today and I'm using Premier Basic X Chunky. I think it's a great beginner yarn. It's twisted nice and taut and has some more forgiving qualities. So when you're getting first started, it's not too bad. This is also what I use for all of my learn to crochet kits as well. Really highly recommend Premier. So one of the reasons why I love beanies so much is because you can use your own head and your own face for reference. It's not like, a sweater or something like that where there's a lot of different measurements and there's a lot of different, you have to create a swatch and then you have to make sure that your swatch matches up with, how it is crochet from your nose to the top of your head and is wide for you to go all the way around. And then we can sew it up and have a lovely little time. Nothing crazy. So what we are going to do is we're going to start with our tail side down right here. I'm going to refer to the side that is cut as our tail side and the side that goes into our ball of yarn as our working side. So we have our tail side right here, and we're going to create a slip knot. If you already know how to do a slip knot, boom, do it. But if you don't, here's our little tutorial. So I want you to take your thumb and your ring finger and you're going to pinch in between those two. You're then going to separate your first and second finger from your third and fourth, and we're going to take our working end of our yarn and wrap it around. So we have a little X on this side and we have two lines on this side. Now all you're going to do is you're going to split those two fingers apart, take your pincher fingers, reach in, grab the yarn, and pull, 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 pull until you have a knot and a big old loop right here. Okay, we're going to do that one more time just in case you missed it. We're going to have our tail end of our yarn down here by our pinky finger, and we're going to separate our first and second finger from our third and fourth right here. We're then going to take our working yarn and we're going to wrap around to create an X. So I have an X on this side and I have two lines on the flip side, okay? I'm going to separate these first and second fingers. We're going to grab our pincher fingers from the other hand, grab and pull, 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 pull until we have a giant loop there. Now, if at any point in this tutorial it gets too fast, I know I talk fast, we're working on it over here, but if it gets too fast, you can always use the tool that YouTube has to slow down the video in the corner. You can make sure that it's nice and slow. The reason why I want to have this as an asynchronous tutorial is if you feel like you're messing up or you missed something or whatever, it is so easy to go back and review what I did to the T. So we're going to take our giant loop here. We're going to take our hook. See how it has this little indentation here? So it's like thicker and then it gets to be this little pad here and then thick again. That is so we can hold it, right? We have a little grip right here. That is our thumb and index finger we're going to use to hold it. This is called a knife grip. I find it's the most beginner friendly. It's the one I still use to this day. So we have a knife grip here. You're going to hold it just like you're holding a knife. And we're going to insert into that giant loop. And then we're going to take our tail end of our yarn and we're going to pull our working side. So basically you're just going to pull until the loop is nice and tight around your hook right here, okay? The hardest thing that you are going to do while you're crocheting, and I think the thing that takes the most amount of time, is holding your project as you are working. That is always going to be a little bit challenging, okay? So my dominant hand is my right. It is always your goal to hold your project with your non-dominant hand. So right now our project is a simple knot. That's it. That's all our project is. What I want you to do is find some way to hold your working yarn, so the yarn that goes all the way into the ball, comfortably. What I do is I try and loop it around my hand once, or just kind of find a spot where I can feel like I can have some kind of tension on my project without doing something crazy. I've seen people just kind of hold their yarn here. You can just grab it in whatever way feels comfortable. You want to find some way to create tension on your piece. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to loop it around my first finger like that. Okay, super simple, super easy. All I did, bring my first finger under, see how that, and then I can pinch the yarn in between these two fingers in order to get some kind of tension on this project. Now, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to take my left hand, my non-dominant hand, and I'm going to pinch in between my thumb and my index finger right here. I'm going to pinch this project. That's going to help us create some kind of tension, and it's going to make sure our project goes downwards. So we're going to do all these cool stitches and then down our project goes. So what we're going to do here is we are going to do what's called yarning over. So I'm going to go over my project. All I did was bring that yarn over my hook. So I have 2 loops on my hook. Now, all I'm going to do is I'm going to bring that hook so the opening is at the bottom. So see where that opening is? I'm going to get nice and close so you can see. When I'm putting my yarn on the hook here, the opening is going to be facing downwards. And that way, when we pull, it's nice and easy. Okay, so we're gonna do that one more time. We're gonna bring our yarn over and we're gonna pull. Then we're gonna bring our yarn over, make sure our hook's facing down, and pull. And we're just gonna keep doing that, okay? Bring our yarn over, make sure our hook's facing down, and pull. And see what I'm doing of bringing this closer into the project. So you can see this hook is tapered, right? So it's a little thinner over here than it is on the more middle of the hook. So when this says 6 millimeters, that's the diameter of this hook. So at its largest point. So this right here is 6 millimeters. So what I'm doing when I'm yarning over and I'm pulling through is this beginning part of the hook makes it so we can slide our project through and still hit that 6 millimeter mark right there. Okay, so we're going to do this a total of 30 times. So I'll show you a little trick after we're done chaining to make sure that your hat fits you well and that everything is feeling comfortable. But we're going to aim for 30 times. So the reason why I use this yarn is it's really easy to see the stitches, or what we call the V's here. So do you see this 1, 2? That's a V right there. So this is your first stitch. This is your second stitch that's a V. Your third stitch that's a V. Your fourth stitch that's a V. Your fifth stitch. So I did this 5 times. If I need to do 30, I'm going to do it 25 more times, okay? Same thing, I'm holding my project, pinching it in between my middle finger and my thumb right here, while my pointer finger kind of does the moving for me. So I'm going to yarn over, bringing that yarn on top of our hook, making sure the hook is down, and we're going to pull through. I'm going to yarn over, making sure the hook is down, and I'm going to pull through. That is all we are doing for the first 30 stitches, okay? So let's count. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 stitches here. So I'll yarn over for 9 and pull through, yarn over for 10 and pull through, yarn over for 11, pull through, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, and 30. We have our big long chain right here, and you're always going to want to double check and verify that you have enough stitches. So we're going to count our V's here. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29,
Okay,
and
so
30.
I chained 30 here, and we're going to test and make sure that it's good. One thing that is a very easy mistake to make, and a mistake that I've made many times, is we're like, okay, how long does it need to be? Let me stretch it to its longest amount, and then we'll go from there. I want you to do it while it's like relaxed, right? Because it's really easy to like fold the beanie up or like make some adjustments like that. But in terms of having a beanie that's like this small on your head, we don't want to do that. Nose to like the crown of your head, right? We can always fold the beanie over, make it cute, whatever, but you don't want it to be too short because then it looks weird, respectfully. Okay, so now we are going to work into the chain. So this is our chain right here. We are now going to start single crocheting. It is abbreviated as SC in many of the patterns that you will see. So when we are working into the chain, we are always going to skip a stitch. So this is our 30th stitch. So we're going to skip that first one because if I crochet into this, sometimes the stitch will just get larger, right? We want to make sure that we secure that stitch stays on its own, it stays secure, no worries about it. And we go into our second stitch from our hook. So we're not going to go into this one, we're going to go into this one. Okay, so same thing, I'm holding my yarn between my middle finger and my thumb, and we are going to insert into the second stitch from our hook. So first stitch is right here, we're skipping that one, we are inserting into the second stitch from your hook. Okay, we're inserting. What we're going to do is that same yarn over technique that we did before. We're going to just grab some yarn from the back, pull over so we have 2 loops on our hook. Okay, we're going to do that one more time. So I'm skipping this first stitch, and in the second stitch, I'm plunging my hook into the center of that V right there. So I'm plunging my hook in, I'm grabbing some yarn from the back, and pulling forward. Okay, so I have 2 loops on my hook. You need to go back and watch that again. The power of YouTube is there for you. Okay, I'll make sure to bring it up nice and close so you can see my lovely little octopi nails too. So we're going to yarn over one more time. So I have 3 loops on my hook. 1, 2, 3. And we are going to pull through all of them. And that is your first single crochet. So we are going to do that all the way down and all the way back and all the way down and all the way back. So it's really cool in these first beginner projects because you're going to start to see how you improve as you go along. If your first couple stitches are rough, do not worry about it. That's expected. If you can finish this project, that is a win. Okay. So same thing. We're going to take our hook. We're going to insert into the center of that V. We're going to grab some yarn from the back, bring it forward. 1, 2 loops on our hook. We can yarn over and pull through. So you're going to start to see those V's appear on the top of your project. So this is going to be the bottom, and then we're going to have a couple of rows of back and forth, and we can stitch it all together, okay? Right now you should just have a string with 2 lovely single crochets in it. So we're going to be doing this pretty much the entire time, okay? So inserting our hook into that V, we are going to grab some yarn from the back, bring it to the front, 2 loops on my hook, yarn over, 3 loops on my hook, pull through, okay, making sure that that hook stays down. Inserting, grabbing some yarn from the back, pulling it forward, yarning over, pulling through. Inserting it into the center, grabbing some yarn from the back, yarning over, and pulling through. We're going to do this all the way down. We should have 29 V's to count here. Insert our hook into that V, grab some yarn from the back, 2 loops of my hook, yarn over and pull through. Insert my hook, grab some yarn from the back, pull to the front, yarn over and pull through. Insert, grab some yarn from the back, yarn over and pull through. Insert, grab some yarn from the back, bring it to the front, yarn over and pull through. Insert, grab some yarn from the back, yarn over and pull. So we're going to do this all the way down. I'm going nice and slow. So we're going to do the same pattern until we have reached the end of our project, and we're going to verify that we have 29 stitches across the top here. Okay, you see our first row starting to form here, which is a couple more stitches, and then we'll make sure that we're good. Insert, grab some yarn from the back, yarn over and pull through. Insert, grab some yarn from the back, yarn over and pull through. Do this all the way down, almost there. Fabulous. So we have reached the end of our row here. So let's pull just to make sure our stitch doesn't fall out. And we're going to count how many V's we see here. Okay. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, and 29. Perfect. Exactly how many we would like to have. So we're going to insert our hook into this big loop again and pull on our working yarn until it's nice and tight. Okay. What we need to do now is go back into the project. So how we're going to make this into a flat panel is by going zigzag all the way up and down. So how do we change directions? What we are going to do is we are going to do 1 chain stitch at the end of our row. And this will help us flip it around so it's nice and clean on the outside. So we're going to take our working yarn. We're going to do the exact same thing that we did to chain to start the project. We are going to wrap around and pull through. And that's our chain. All we're going to do is wrap around and pull through. Okay, now to start going the other direction, what we're going to do is we're going to flip our project around. So this chain really helps us so we can like flip-flop the project and have minimal interruption. So we have our little chain here. And you know how I said before that we're going to not go into the closest stitch from the hook. We're going to go into second closest. And this is perfect for going into that last stitch of our row. So we're not going to go into this first stitch from our chain. We're going into the second stitch from the hook. Not this chain, we're going into this next stitch. And we are going to single crochet all the way back, okay? So same thing we were just doing. We're inserting our hook. We're grabbing some yarn from the back. We're yarning over and pulling through. Now it does look a little bit different because you're not going into a chain, but you're going into a stitch. So see these little gaps in between the stitches? That is where you're going to aim your hook, okay? So I'm taking my hook and I'm going into the gap in between the stitches. So it should wrap itself around this V. See right here, I'm going in between, I'm pushing through, grabbing some yarn from the back, pulling it forward, yarning over and pulling through. So we're going to do the same single crochet all the way down until we count. We have 29 stitches all over again. Insert, grab some yarn from the back, yarn over and pull through. Insert, grab some yarn from the back, yarn over and pull through. And see how I'm always keeping this pressure between my middle finger and my thumb here? That is really going to help you out and make sure that you have nice, consistent tension or spacing in between our stitches here. Insert, grab some yarn from the back, yarn over and pull through. Insert, grab some yarn from the back, yarn over and pull through. You guys are going to get real familiar with this stitch by the end of your project. It's going to be like breathing, okay? Just something that'll come natural. It's all muscle memory, right? I can do this with my eyes closed right now, but that's because I've done it hundreds of thousands of times. My brain is just on autopilot sometimes when I'm doing this. It's just creating that repetitive motion and that repetitive pattern. Inserting, grabbing some yarn from the back, yarning over and pulling through. All the way to the end. Okay, so you know the drill here. See those V's? We're gonna go ahead and count them. I'm gonna pull so I have a little bit more of a loop, and we're gonna count our V's right here. And count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, and 29. Gorgeous. Exactly the number we want to get every single time we're counting these rows, okay? So you're never going to believe it, but we are going to chain one in order to go back into our project. So same thing, I'm inserting my hook into this big loop. I'm pulling tight. I'm wrapping the yarn around my hook, and I'm pulling through that loop. We're then just flipping the project so it's going back this way so we can work back into the project, okay? You can start to see the little flips and flops that we're doing here, right? So that was our chain, our first row, and our second row. It's really cool to be able to see these things kind of evolve as you're working on them. So now that we have our single crochet and our chain down, I want you to go back and forth 29 times each row with that chain on the outside and turn to make sure that we have enough to go around your head, okay? So with that, we're going to create a big flat panel to make sure that you are able to create one incredible beanie. So I'm going to go off camera and I'm going to do the rest. If you need any help, please hit that rewind button. Please make sure to slow down the video in the corner, whatever you need to make sure that you understand this, okay? Everybody was beginner once at literally everything that we do. No one was born, being a roofer, knowing how to clean or knowing how to even brush your teeth or something simple like that. Everybody has to start somewhere. So we're going to have a really big panel here. And our job with our panel is to have it measure all the way around your head. See how it's like nice and relaxed in this lovely thing we have here. I know because I'm a human being and I've done this before. You are going to want to be like, okay, it's like as tight as can possibly be around your head. It's the right length. Like it's enough. Do a couple extra rows because you will get a headache if you do it too tight. I have no idea how I know that. It's not because I've made that same mistake 100 times. Once you've reached enough rows to be able to wrap around your head, we are going to create a very long tail and then cut it. Okay? You are done with the crocheting part of this hat adventure here. See, we only need to learn how to chain and single crochet. See all the cool things you can make? Okay, so I'm gonna cut my yarn. BRB. When I say like long string, I mean like the length of your project, like maybe a little more, right? Like give yourself ample room. I used about a skein and a half, maybe a skein and 3/4 of this, because I wanted a really big, nice, fluffy hat. So this ended up being 75 rows. First step to sewing these together is to fold it in half like a hamburger, right? So we have this big long panel and we're just going to fold it in half to make a hat shape. We're then going to take our long string. So I'm not taking the short one that we started with. We're taking our long string here and we are going to grab a needle here. This is a darning needle. It's meant to go through stitches rather than like creating a new hole in there. So it's not that sharp. It's so sneaky. You can go ahead and put your yarn on your needle here. And then basically what we're going to do, because we have 29 stitches on one side and 29 stitches on the other, is we can just line it up and go stitch by stitch here. So this is going to be my first stitch. Get nice and zoomed in here. This is my chain stitch and this is my first actual stitch in my project. So I'm going to take my first stitch and I'm going to go directly into my first stitch on the other side. And we're just going to pull until we have a nice and taut project here. Now, same thing, I'm going to go so we're on the back on this side, we're going to go over to the front on this side. We're going to go second stitch through your second stitch here. This is why counting was one of the many reasons why counting is so important. So when the front and the back of your projects line up and they have the same amount of stitches, it's super easy, makes it look super seamless to bring it all together. And we're just going to do that exact same thing all the way down. We're going to insert into our third and then bring it out into our third stitch on this side. Just going to keep going until you hit the end of the project. Same thing, fourth and fourth. Now you guys see where I said make a long tail here. We got to go all the way around all these stitches. That cat hair? Well, I'm not shocked. So, pulling here. And then you'll start to see this banding on the outside. That's exactly what you want. There's some other techniques, but I find this is called a whip stitch to be a really beginner friendly way to end this project. Don't want to make, or I don't want to throw too much at you guys in the first project. So always figure this is a good strategy here. Keep inserting. I'm pulling those nice and tight. We chose a yarn here that's incredibly durable. Crochet in general is incredibly durable. But how many strands are in this is going to make it so it is a really durable project. And it'll last you a very long time. Whoop! I pulled my yarn too close to the camera. Okay, so I've reached the end of my project here. And the cool thing is that they have met each other, right? I have that starting stitch or the starting tail that I started my project with, and the tail that I ended my project with. So it's not always going to be like this. It's basically odd and even number of stitches, or sorry, odd and even number of rows will depend on what side of the project your yarn tail will be on. So if your yarn tail is not on this side, don't worry about it. I'm going to show you two ways to close it. One if you have your yarn tail, one if you don't. So I'm going to show you the one if you don't have a matching yarn tail here. So what we're going to do is we're basically just going to create a nice big knot, weave it in so it's nice and seamless here. But this is my working yarn and the exit of my project here. So this is going through this last stitch. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go on the inside of my project and I'm going to create a loop here. So good pro tip is to put your finger right where you think this loop is going to be. That way that loop doesn't run away from you. Okay, so we have our loop right here. We're just going to create a loop in a project next to where our last stitch is. We are then going to insert our needle in there once, pull, and we're going to insert our needle in there twice and pull. And then you are just going to pull until you cannot pull anymore. And you'll notice that'll create a knot. So we're just going to have a nice little knot here for our project to hang out. And you can double knot it if you want. Some people like a little bit more secure. I find a single knot is sufficient, but you do you, queen. If you have your yarn tail on the opposite side of your project or where your project ends, you can just tie a knot like this. Crazy, magical. So many ways to end a project, you know? So we have our lovely old knot here, and we're going to do what is called weaving in our ends. This is foundational. If you create any flat project, you're going to have to do this. So what you're going to do is basically take your needle and we're just going to randomly go back and forth a couple of times in our project. So this helps us hide. So like when you create a knot and you have really short tails, then that knot can come undone, right? But you don't necessarily want these long tails hanging out all over your project. So weaving in our ends makes it so we can have long tails for our project, but if they can be hidden in our project, and so we don't just have a whole bunch of long tails flopping about here. So same thing, I'm just kind of going randomly. You just insert it into your project. I like to go in between the stitches so it's nice and hidden. We're just going to go back and forth. I like to go back and forth 2 times So this way 2 times and then up and down 2 times. And I think that's maybe a little overkill, but how long did we spend on this project? And you're not gonna let it unravel just because we wanted to like save, a minute and a half, kind of thing. We've already put enough time in this project. So we're then gonna go up and through our project. There we go. And we're gonna go down. Into our project. And we're gonna do that one more time for good measure, hey? Dun, dun. You can weave in your ends as much as you would like. But once you feel like your ends are sufficiently woven in, we are going to take our scissors here and we're going to snip right at the base there. And that way our ends are nice and hidden away. And you have a nice seamless project here. So I'm going to do it again with the other tail because we have our start and our finish tail. So this is my starting tail. I'm going to do that again. And then I also have a little knot that I needed to make to tie together 2 balls of yarn. So I'm going to really quickly make sure I do all of that off camera, make sure everything's nice and seamless, and then we'll be back to scrunch up the top and make yourself a nice little beanie. Now I'm going to teach you how to tie the top so we can actually create a real beanie and not just like a little trumpet growing out of the top of your head. Last thing we're going to do is we're going to cinch up the top so it's like a beanie. Like, you know how like the top of a beanie is like closed. It's like that. That's what we're going to do. We're going to do like a nice arm's length worth of yarn here. Bring it from your original color and we'll be all good to go. So you're going to thread it onto your needle. We're going to take our needle and we're going to insert it anywhere into the top of our project. You can decide which side's the top and which side's the bottom. They look the same to me, so I'm just going to choose this side. And then what we're going to do here is we're not going to pull all the way through. We're going to create a little knot with our yarn here. So I'm just going to tie one side of the knot and tie the other side of the knot here. So all we're going to do to close off this beanie is we're basically going to go back and forth in between the stitches. So I'm going to go under and over and under and over all the way around, and we're going to start cinching our project. See if we can bring those stitches a little bit closer together, and that will give us the lovely top that we are looking for here. There are more advanced beanie techniques where you can like taper it in to the top as you're going. But this is a beginner tutorial. This is like your first project ever, girl. I'm trying to make this as simple as possible for you. Under and over all the way around. I love having repetitive steps in this because first couple are going to feel weird and then you're going to be able to like knock this out. So like, oh my God. See, you can start pulling it and we can start to get that little cinch. Look at our little cinch and our little beanie. Under, over, pull, all the way around. Do 2 at a time, you do 4 at a time. If you want to do 6 at a time, this is your project. Okay, and then we get to the end here. So we're going to go into the same stitch that our knot was in. Okay, and then basically what you're going to do is we are going to pull this big piece, the one that's not a knot, and we are just going to pull all of our little stitches together. There's going to be a bit of securing at the end here just because It's likely with how thick of a yarn we used, we're not going to get a perfect close on the first try, which is totally fine. We're just going to kind of work, can feel that tension all the way around. We want to make sure that these are nice and tight. Big pull here. So if you have a hole about that size, we are going to be good to go. And you're going to take your thread and we're just going to kind of go back and forth to create a closed hole here. Okay. So it doesn't have to be particular. We're just going to kind of create like a nice little star back and forth. So I'm just going from one end of the project to the other end of the project, back and forth until it feels like we have a nice closed top to our beanie. So I'm just using the top layer that we created. That's like the top of our project here. I'm just going back and forth. See how that's starting to close up? It's exactly what we want. Do one more for good measure. Find a spot that looks a little loose. And then we're going to bring it back to our initial spot again. And we're going to do that silly little thing that's just called tying a knot. Okay, so we're going to take those two pieces together, tie this knot, tie it again, and then we're going to do the exact same thing of hiding our ends that we did before, and you will have a finished beanie here. So the same way we tied before, we're just going to go back and forth a couple times into our project, pull into our project, pull, just back and forth. Super simple until you feel like you've done enough where it's nice and secure and you can go ahead and hide those ends in. That is always our goal. Keep those long ends so that knot doesn't come out. Don't make it so visible, right? Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and snip, dink, and that's one end in, and then our other end might be a little shorter. If you don't get it all the way with those 3 and 3 or 2 and 2, don't worry about it. We shall survive. Back for one. And forth for another. And forth for another. Okay, perfect. And we're just going to snip this last little tail and we will be done here. Okay, so here is your finished beanie. You have a lovely little twist on it, so it's nice and big, it's nice and comfortable. It'll keep you warm all winter long. If you want more Learn to Crochet tutorials, we have kits.
which includes everything that you need to start your next project. If you want to try a magic ring, if you want to try something like that. We also have videos on our YouTube page, and we're going to be investing a lot more into YouTube in 2026. Of course, if you want to buy finished plushies, we have so many incredible plushies on Citizens Crochet. I hope you all have a fabulous rest of your day, and I'll see you soon.